Hello, my name is Michael McEntee and welcome to Township Book Reviews. Today, our book topic is Blood and Iron by John Sprunk. Stick with us to learn about the next book you should have on your reading list. If you haven't read Blood and Iron by John Sprunk yet, you should go out and buy it right now. Blood and Iron is a 226-page book written in a split third-person point of view, following the story of main protagonists Horace, Jerome, and Alira, who all play a crucial role. This book portrays Horace's struggle in the time like that of the ancient Roman Empire in its days of power. The book gives you a map of the lands in which the book is set, so you too can have an adventure of your own. Horace was a normal soldier and boat repairer from a western nation who enlists to fight in the Great Crusade against the Achaemenid Empire before his life was taken by storm, literally. While living on a warship, there was a giant storm resulting in a shipwreck. As the sole survivor of the wreck, Horace is thrown into a country that he was fighting against. The nation is not like any he has ever seen. It is a land of magic and sorcery where the requirements to be in the ruling class was to have such powers. When he washes ashore, a nice family welcomed him into their home until a ruler found out about himself, the fugitive. Horace was immediately thrown into the terrors of slavery and is marched through deserts to various cities, meeting one of the other characters on the way. Horace meets Jerome, a fellow slave who helps Horace stand up to the oppressors. While on a trek through the desert to their next city, a terrible storm approaches the slaves and masters. When all hope was lost, Horace stood up and screamed with his arms outstretched. His scream activated his latent magical powers. It was a shock to everyone, including himself, which resulted in his release from the chains of slavery. His use of magic immediately thrust him into the ruling class of the society he was in. With his new powers, Horace is put on the Queen's court and is made to make decisions regarding the outcome of the attack on his original nation and put against the very people who he became friends with, the slaves. In the end, Horace's main struggle is against the empire he is now meant to help rule. He is also attempting to free the slaves from the grip of this very empire. Horace immediately decides to destroy the system from the inside out and free the slaves. His adventure is continued in the second book of the series, Storm and Steel. Now I am going to say some quotes from the book. Quote 1. Another bolt of ghoulish green lightning slashes across the sky. Flames rose 50 yards off the port side as another ship in the flotilla caught fire. Then something snapped above his head with a violent crack. This quote was from page 14. I chose this quote because it shows how this book is descriptive, adventurous, and very explicit. This is important because this is right before the shipwreck that starts off Horace's adventure. Quote 2. Tell him that I honestly don't know anything about this magic. Like I told his father, I am just a simple craftsman. I build and repair ships. I like this quote from page 81 because it portrays Horace, the speaker, as an underdog, who honestly doesn't know what's going on, and this emphasizes how much of a difference just the little magic he had made to his status. Quote 3. Horace couldn't let them face it alone because the truth was, he had come to admire these people. This very short quote comes from page 185. This is important to me because it shows how dynamic of a character Horace really is, much like the other characters in this book. Horace is now showing compassion for the people he went to war to fight against. Quote 4. Horace leaned back on the divan and ran his fingers through his hair. Can we take a break? Alira set down the papyrus upon which were drawn the letters of the Achaemenid alphabet. I find this quote very important. This is when Horace is learning the alphabet of the Achaemenid Empire after he is put into the ruling class. I find it interesting as a plot point how they put a person of this uneducated caliber into the government. I wonder what you will think when you read it. Quote 5. Horace could only watch in horror as the chaos storm swept over the town. This is one of the final quotes. I believe this is very important because the book is to the book as well. This single line, I believe, portrays Horus's split in loyalty. He can either use his powers to save the city of the Akeshan Empire, or let the storm rage and defeat one of the biggest cities of his enemy's nation. My favorite page from the book Blood and Iron is page 75. This is the page. He didn't realize he had stood up until he felt the hand tugging his arm. Jerome kept a strong hold on him, but Horus shook his head. The impulse to move, to do something, compelled him. He pulled free and rose to his full height. He sensed some sort of connection to the storm, as if the energy was flowing through him was reflected in the clouds above. Or maybe it was the other way around. He reached up with his fingers spread. Horus gasped as the blinding light exploded in front of his eyes. Searing agony ripped through his body like he had been dropped into a vat of acid. His muscles writhed, contracting so hard he thought his sinews were going to pull free from his bones. His lungs froze mid-breath. Yet through it all, the alien energy continued to pour out of him, or into him. He didn't understand what was happening. He wanted it all to just stop. This is my favorite page of the book because I believe this is where the story really takes off. This is where Horus really discovers his powers. There are many literary terms used in this book, one of which is flashback. Flashback is used in Chapter 5 and many other parts of this book. In Chapter 5, Horus is reminiscing about his life before the Great Crusade and before he was thrown into this nation, and reminiscing about his life with his family and wife. Another literary term that is heavily portrayed in this book is setting. The use of strong description and language allows the setting to reflect the situation of Horus. When Horus is enslaved, he is in a dark setting with very strong, intense meanings, but when he is in power or thinking about his wife, he imagines beautiful scenes. One of the other literary terms used in Blood and Iron is climax or turning point. The strongest example of turning point from this book is the page that I used as my favorite. This is the strongest because this is where Horus finally discovers his powers and his adventure really takes a turn. The final example of a literary term I'm going to use is irony. I find the whole book ironic. This is because the ruling class of the Akeshan Empire must have these magical abilities that Horus possesses. But throughout the book, you see the rulers must take all of their advice from a high council. These people are those who know what's best for the nation, but cannot be part of this ruling class because they don't have these powers. It is also ironic that Horus is a Westerner who was meant to fight against the Akeshans, but now he is ruling that very empire. This is a book that I believe is very interesting. This book kept me at the edge of my seat and forced me to turn the pages so I could find out what happened next. Once I picked up this book, there was no putting it down. The use of complex themes and characters really drove this book. This plot allowed me to look at them and see many ways in which the situation could have ended. Ultimately, I strongly recommend Blood and Iron to all good readers who like to be taken on an adventure. Like all other books in Township Book Reviews, we like to rate books on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. I would give this book 4 stars. It was a great plot that leaves you with very few questions I hope to be answered in the sequel. Thanks for listening to this book review. I hope you consider Blood and Iron the next time you are shopping at Barnes & Noble. And remember, just keep reading and you will do great things. Signing off for now, this is Mike McEntee.